light this chalice for everyone in the congregation, celebrating the flame of faith lit in each of us.
Honoring the light each of us bring into the world, rejoicing in the community we create together.
That we are. This morning is a multi-generational service, which means that we are all in here together all morning long. I want to introduce you to the spirit space over here for families, for children, or for anyone who would like to sit over there to be interactive and embodied. This is a place where not only do we value, not only do we celebrate, but we welcome each and every one of us in this space and far away, watching at home or wherever we might be watching or listening today or in the future. This is a space for each one of us. And we welcome this morning, not only spreading the love, but finding a way to be together despite all the odds. And I want to welcome you into turning and greeting your neighbor, either with a fist bump or an elbow, shaking hands, or even just saying hi. As we move into worship this morning, may we make space for whatever it is that we're needing, whether it's to move around, whether it's to light a candle, whether it's to be in silence and stillness, or whether it is to move how we need to move. In this morning and in this space, may we be present, may we be full, and may we be together. Come, let us worship.
Good morning. Today, we are telling a story in two parts. So this is a story called Ordinary Mary's Extraordinary Deed, and it's a picture book by Emily Pearson, but Beth Irakura has adapted it to connect it to our congregation. So Ordinary Mary was so very ordinary that you'd never guess that she could change the world. But she did. She changed the world. One ordinary day, skipping on her way from her ordinary house to her ordinary school, Mary came by River Road UU congregation. She sometimes walked through the grounds because it was so peaceful there. On this day, she saw Joe Salunas hard at work weeding the front garden. She asked him questions about the flowers she saw, and Joe gave Mary 5 flowers to take with her. At school, Ordinary Mary decided to give the flowers to her favorite teachers. One of those teachers asked Mary where she had gotten them. When Mary said RRUUC, her teacher remembered the people she always saw on Friday evenings holding Black Lives Matter signs on the corner of River Road and Whittier Boulevard. She was inspired to do something nice for those people. On the next Friday night, she brought water to Jana Kirkman and all the people holding signs at the vigil. Everyone at the vigil was inspired by the teacher's kindness. 2 of those people, Lee Scott and Mark Cohen, redoubled their efforts with the animal ministry to give supplies to area animal shelters. When volunteers at those shelters saw how helpful all of the supplies were to the animals and the families adopting pets, they each decided to do something kind too. And then we'll have part 2 later in the service.
So today, it's Easter, right? It's bunnies and springtime and eggs and candy, of course. It's a season of growth and wonder and witness for all the possibilities that new life can bring. But I bet so many of you know what Easter is also about. It's about an old, old story in the Christian tradition. It's a story about Jesus and how he lived and how he died and how somehow in the middle he started a very, very big thing in the world. Now, the story of Jesus and the story of Easter, it's not simple. It's a rather complicated one. And since I'm going to attempt to tell part of it without notes, I think I'm going to need some volunteers, spirit space, to help jog my memory on just what exactly this story is all about. Anybody who'd like to volunteer, come on up. Well, hello. I feel like I've seen you all about 5 minutes ago. Right? So we just heard a story, and why don't you sit down? I'll get you going on your tasks here in a minute, okay? So we just heard a story about what Ordinary Mary, a very ordinary person, not so different than any of us might do, when she comes to a place here where other ordinary people are making a difference. And that box that's right next to you, Eloise, that box, I'm going to think of it as something like a time machine that takes us from Ordinary Mary's world, right here, right now, on River Road, all the way back to the 1st century in a place called Palestine, which was a place all full of sand and wonder and stories, a place that was ruled by the Roman Empire in ways that sometimes hurt the people. And if we open up this time machine and we travel back from our world, an Ordinary Mary's world, we will find in it some ways to help me tell the story. And so one of you, could you open the time machine? Okay, and I need another volunteer to look inside that time machine and to pull out a very important part of the story in the purple egg. You ready? Eloise, why don't you show everybody that purple egg? Go ahead and stand up. And if you can open it up, there's an important part of Jesus' story inside that purple egg. What did you find? Hold it up. Yeah, that's a calculator. Which I'm going to guess is not what you totally expected, right? But I'm telling you, this reminds me, and you guys can stay sitting here if you want to, or you can go over there. This reminds me of one of the very most important parts of Jesus' story and the way in which he built, that was a good flourish, Eloise, thank you. He built something very, very big from something very, very small. And you know, of course, that it's Easter, and it's April 17th, et cetera, but you know what it was 2 days ago? It was April 15th, which is tax day. That's right. It's a day where everybody figures out how to pay their taxes, and I know that taxes might not be the most exciting thing to all of you, and I won't get into it too much, but taxes are the way that, like, the government pays for roads and, like, schools and things like that. Taxes are very important. But since we have gone into a time machine, I want to tell you a story about a man named Zacchaeus, who lived in ancient Palestine in the time of Jesus. Zacchaeus was someone they called a tax collector. He worked for the Roman Empire, and it was his job to collect all of the money from all of the people to help a whole bunch of rich people in the highest levels of the Roman Empire get even richer. And when Zacchaeus knocked on your door, knock, 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 he was coming to ask for a whole bunch of your money to make rich people richer. And so, what do you think people thought of Zacchaeus? Was he a popular dude? No. For very, very rich people, but not for his friends. And so for the most part, Zacchaeus' only friend was his little first century version of a calculator in which he kept a long, long list of who paid their taxes and how and who didn't pay their taxes and who he needed to hunt down. And every time Zacchaeus came to your door, the people would hide, or they would run away, or they would throw rotten fruit at him. Zacchaeus was not the guy anyone wanted to be around. In fact, he felt like maybe this calculator was his only friend. And one day, in the middle of Jericho, which is the town where Zacchaeus lived, where he worked, where he collected those taxes for an empire that was just making rich people richer, a traveling teacher named Jesus came to that town, Jericho. And when a traveling teacher came to town, the most honored thing that you could do was invite them to stay in your own home. And Jesus was down among the people. He was teaching not about all sorts of fancy stuff like founding a new church. Mostly he was teaching people about how each and every person is important, no matter what, and how no matter what you've done, no matter who you are, no matter where you live, no matter how you hurt, no matter any darn thing, there was love for you. And Zacchaeus knew that if he went and stood down among the people, they would probably throw rotten fruit at him again. And so he climbed up a very tall tree. And he hung out of that tree watching Jesus preach until Jesus looked up at him and he said, Zacchaeus, you, come down from that tree right away because I am tired and tonight I will rest in your home. Jesus did something so brave that no one else could do. He invited the person everyone hated to be the most honored man in the whole city. And sometimes we like to tell the story of Jesus and Easter as the founding of a whole new church, and I guess it is. But mostly, it was Jesus founding among people one kind deed at a time, a whole new way of being in the world. Something starts so small, one person, and grows to something so big. And that's the beginning of our story. You can take the purple egg to the spirit space and the calculator, have fun with it. We'll come back for the rest of the story a little bit later. Thank you, volunteers.
So every week when we come together for this time of centering and meditation and connection, we call it prayer. But prayer by any other name, it's just intention. It's a time that we carve out to be present with that presence in our own lives, whether it is that we are praying to an entity or just centering ourselves in this space. Setting intentions is so important for how we live our lives. Setting intentions can go far, and when we are deciding who we want to be in this world and how we want to show up, especially in these spaces, we can pray alone, and sometimes we pray together. When we pray together and we set those intentions together, we are doing that as an act of belonging, as an act of coming together, as something we do in community, as something we do as a collective. So here in this space, I want to invite us into that time of making intention, rooting ourselves where we're at, maybe being still or maybe moving. Prayer doesn't have to be something that we do always in silence with our head bowed. It can be something that we do with our voices, something that we do with our hands, with our bodies, or something that we do in stillness. Being present is what is key. So I want to invite you into that presence in this time. Maybe lowering your gaze, closing your eyes, maybe staying still, or maybe moving yourself. And I want to call forth that intentional spirit of life, that presence that stirs within us all this morning. For those who are here in this space and those who are watching from home, those who might be listening later, we are connected through that spirit. We come with so much gratitude and joy in our hearts for the ability to gather once more, week after week, in such a holy time for so many kinds of people. This time of Easter, this time of the turning of the seasons, this time when we get a chance, another opportunity to renew our spirits. We come with gratitude for the ability to be together, to lift our hearts and join our hands, to spread love to one another, even in such a scary time in this world, even when so much seems uncertain. We are here still. We lift up our hearts to those who cannot be here with us, those who can't join us this morning for whatever reason. We lift up our hearts to those who are still struggling in this world. We lift up our hearts to those who are still trying to find home and family, those struggling with isolation, those who haven't found a connection. We come with the joys in our hearts. We come with sorrow in our hearts. And we hold gratitude for a place and a space that can hold it all. As we move into our day, into our week, into our month, may we carry that presence and that renewal and that emerging in our hearts. May it help guide us to one another. May it help connect us to something bigger than ourselves. And may we do this with love. May we do this with friendship. May we give of our hearts. And may we find the presence in all that we do. May it always be so. Amen, and blessed be.
So the thing about starting small is that whatever it is that you plant in the ground or in the world or in your community, it has to grow if it's to survive. And for this next part of our story, I will need volunteers again, any of you who came up before, or maybe some new folks, to help us figure out what the next piece of this story is, to open up the time machine and ponder what it means to help one person and let it change into a whole group of people who just might change the world. Hadley, I wonder if you could get up, open the green egg right there, and then show people what's in it. Hi, Josiah. Hi. What do you see?
A bunch of sticks.
A bunch of sticks. So this one is just one stick, right? And this one, it's a whole bunch of sticks. And you can go ahead and sit down. Keep hold of that. I'm going to need you to help me with this stick here in a second. So the thing is that Jesus, he went around Jericho and other cities and small towns, and he told people that each and every person was important, and he tried to be kind in a way that made people know that they mattered in this world. And I told you the story of Zacchaeus, and do you know that Zacchaeus went off from that place in Jericho in that one time where Jesus was the one person who was nice to him, and he proceeded to preach and teach the message of Jesus all over Palestine. And do you know that also Jesus had people who followed him and became his friends and companions on the road as he traveled and taught? They're called disciples, apostles, whatever. It's often said there were 12 of them, maybe there were more. And the point is that when Jesus went about his work was a pretty scary thing. Because what he wanted to do was challenge the Roman Empire that made people afraid and that didn't give people freedom and that made people hurt. He wanted to challenge the mightiest empire that ever existed in the entire history of the world. And do you think that Jesus could do it alone? What happens when one person takes on mighty forces? That one person isn't strong enough to change it all. But when Jesus and his friends decided to travel together, to work together, to make change together, to stand up to empire together, was it harder to break them apart? I'm going to tell you, I lift weights like I am no wimp, and I cannot break this. I cannot do it. In fact, a bundle of sticks bound together was a symbol in the Roman Empire of a might that no one could topple. Anybody want to try to break it? Josiah, you are quite buff. We'll see how it goes. Oh, dear. I think it hurt you. I'm sorry, darling. Yeah, okay. All right, maybe we'll pass it around. Diana, can you break it? So the thing is that Jesus and his friends in the ancient, and Diana couldn't break it. In the ancient Near East, they weren't the only people who took on the mightiest forces and the scariest things that the world has ever known. We too take on mighty forces and scary things. Imagine, if you will, what it will take to change this world so that we can actually make a difference in the environmental devastation that's going on right now. Could one person working on their own stop global warming? Absolutely not. Could one person change a world of injustice in which the poor get poorer and rich get richer? No. But when the people come together to work as a community, a small thing gets a little bit bigger each and every day. And I know that these last few years, here, Hadley, you can keep hold of that. These last few years, we've been talking a lot about how sometimes when people come together, we can spread dangerous things, like germs, right? Hand to hand, mouth to mouth, we can spread dangerous things when people come together. But do you know that when people come together to spread ideas and hope and love and life, hand to hand, soul to soul, heart to heart, we can build the kind of strength that changes the world. A strength so strong that we can take on the mightiest forces that keep us down. And so in this season, I think what we're called to do is a kind of Eastering, and I mean that as a verb. It's an active thing. We can go about the business of spreading, of sharing, a contagion of hope, a contagion of love. It is an active work to resurrect that hope from the ashes. As my colleague Paul Sawyer once said, we gather this morning in defiance of the pain and injustice that came before, and the pain and injustice that will come again. We gather in hope that life can and will begin anew, that our differences can be bridged, that our community can rise stronger at last. We gather in faith that light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. We gather in wonder of the beauty we still see and the mystery we may never know. So here on this bright day among the lilies, among the warm glow of our friends, we pray for the faith to stand together for what is good and to do what we must, knowing we could never do it alone. Thank you. Hadley, you can take this one with you, and we'll have one more egg and one more piece of the story yet to come. Not one hand on the keys, but four. Not one player bringing a note of hope, but two. Yes, everything we do together is stronger because we choose to do it as one. We can hold more joys and sorrows. We can accomplish more work that leads toward justice. And today we gather, just like Jesus and his friends, in the midst of so much joys and sorrows, laughter and tears. We gather knowing that we are grateful to share this life, grateful to honor it, and full of grief for those we have lost. We honored Bob Quick's life, who passed at 95 years old, a longtime and beloved River Roader. We honored his life in a beautiful service among family and friends at RRUUC Chapel just last Wednesday, the 14th. And what a joy to tell his story together. Our hearts are with Sarah Ducey after the passing of her sister, Diana's aunt, Hadley's great aunt, Chandani Margaret Bachman, who passed at 69 years old from breast cancer early Wednesday morning. A memorial will be held at River Road this spring, and we are so profoundly grateful for all of the many ways that she was tended by the people who took good care of her. We also join in celebrating Susan Paget, who was celebrated this week with an honor flight celebrating her service as a veteran of the United States military. Susan is one of our members who lives far afield. Hello, Susan, watching from Florida. So having her here in DC, even for the very briefest of visits, was a great joy, and thank you indeed, Susan, and so many others for your service. We also open up a space in all of our hearts for the empty chair at the table, left for the prophet in the Passover season, who comes with tidings of courage and change. May Passover be a time of memory and hope and recommitment among us and all those in exile who remain so far from home. You know, here at River Road, everything we do, and we do a lot, it's really just supposed to point us toward how we want to be in the world. And there are so many ways you can get involved, ways that you can serve and celebrate and share. The River Road Retreat is basically like moments away. It's next weekend. Like, seriously, sign up now. And you can come to our Sunday morning service outdoors at Seneca Creek State Park, whether you have registered or will register for the retreat or not. It's at 10 o'clock, Seneca Creek, so next Sunday, don't show up here because we will be outside with 40 drums and a whole bunch of singing and the joy and delight of gathering together in community. We'll also have an option to join our partner congregation Cedar Lane online next Sunday at 11 o'clock if you choose, but we do hope as many as possible will come to join us for that celebration. Of course, you'll want to save the date and a whole bunch of your stuff for the River Road Annual Bazaar, which is coming up the first Saturday in June. It is happening, people. Details are in the e-weekly, and you can find out more. We are going to need all of the volunteers we can get. Let's do it, team. You can also save the date for our gathering of social justice leaders here at River Road on May 15th at noon. Just after the Sunday service, it'll be a time to connect, reflect, and build a vision together for what social justice can be in the future. As we continue to emerge from the pandemic and adjust to a new normal, we have this opportunity to celebrate and recommit, to meet in the lobby right after the service and think new thoughts and braver imaginings together. And finally, people, we have only 14% of the way to go. We are so close to meeting our goal in the stewardship campaign. All this whole thing happens because you make it happen. We're grateful to the 239 households who have made their pledges so far to support the coming year's operating budget. And to those who have not yet pledged, you might think about what it is you enjoy in this place, or what you might enjoy, the community you hope to find, the community your children have found. If those programs, if that sense of belonging in the midst of an isolating world means something to you, please join us and my family in making your pledge. You can hit the green button on the website. You can actually just give me a call. You can email stewardship@rruuc.org. All those ways make it count. And we are so profoundly grateful for your support.
Each and every month, we partner with a community organization whose work and values align with our shared hopes of building the beloved community. This month, we are extending our offering to the Montgomery County Green New Deal Internship Program. This internship provides opportunities for Black, Indigenous, and POC youth throughout this county to learn, expand, and grow their skills as emerging climate activists and organizers, as well as widening the circle as to whose voices are heard and centered in this work. We know that the climate movement is largely led by young people. They are the ones who are teaching all of us what it means to be responsible for and accountable to this planet and all of us on it. We also know that if we don't take direct action now, we will already be what we will continue to live in the impact of the climate chaos that we are already experiencing now. So here in just a few moments, we'll hear from Raki, a senior at Walt Whitman High, about why this work is important to him and how we can all be a part of it.
All right, hi, my name is Raki Krishnan. I'm a 12th grader at Walt Whitman High School, and I'm a member of the Montgomery County Green New Deal Internship. So 3 things I wanted to talk about was why climate activism is important to me, what the Montgomery County Green New Deal Internship is and like how it's structured, and then why MCPS is the focus and what we want done. So firstly, climate activism is our future, and I want to live in a future where things are equitable, peaceful, and sustainable. And our mission in this internship and climate activism in general promotes all of these things. The magnitude of the climate crisis is unfathomable. There are going to be consequences that we haven't even predicted yet. And the thought of that is really scary. And as someone in a position to do something about it, it is important to me to put as much time and energy as I can into this cause. So this internship, the Montgomery County Green New Deal Internship, is structured around uplifting the voice of the youth BIPOC community in Montgomery County. BIPOC students from across the county participate in this internship. And we learn a lot from Jim, who created the internship, Beth, who is also an inspiring activist, and many other people with valuable experience while working together towards promoting nonviolent direct action for our cause against climate change. And lastly, MCPS is one of the biggest fossil fuel emitters in Montgomery County. And as we participants in the Montgomery County Green New Deal internships are all students at MCPS, so our voices deserve to be heard. We believe that we have the right and will instill change in MCPS. Some of the things that we want done are MCPS to purchase 100% renewable energy to power all buildings, stop installing fossil fuel equipment in new buildings, retrofit old buildings, replacing natural gas equipment and with electric, upgrading efficient energy, install solar panels at every school by 2027, more opportunities for low-income Montgomery County communities, and provide good wages for all MCPS work related to climate and clean energy. So I just wanted to say thank you for your support, and the money that you give will be used for people like me to participate in this internship throughout the summer.
Of course, thank you to the Earth Ministry team for bringing this partnership, and to Jim Driscoll, who was mentioned in the video, who actually founded this internship as a part of the Montgomery County Green New Deal. If you'd like to learn more about this internship or the Green New Deal, you can visit 350moco.org for more information. Of course, there are so many ways to give. And of course, as we just learned, what we give today will go directly to stipends to pay interns so they can do this very valuable work. Of course, you can text to give. The text to give number is 73256. That's 73256. You can also select Earth Ministry from the drop-down menu on that text to give menu. It should be actually the first thing. You can also go to our website at rruuc.org, click on Social Justice Giving, and you can give now on that Give Now button. You can even email a check to the building. And if you find yourself wanting to be a part of the direct efforts that we make in this congregation to be responsible for and accountable to this earth, you can, of course, always reach out to the Earth Ministry team or even our Green Sanctuary team. You can also be on the lookout for actions that we can each do in our own lives to keep this planet going for the children of our children. As we listen to this music, please give deeply from your hearts. Give to the future that we are all creating together. Give to those who will be building and recreating this world so that we might all have a shot at the beloved community.
To believe that no is not the only possible answer. To believe that death does not have to be the final decision. To believe that healing does not have to be impossible. Perhaps you know the next part of the story. How Jesus and his friends who found each other, they went together to Jerusalem, the very heart of the empire in Judea, and how that empire killed him because he was telling a story that was spreading bigger and bigger and bigger. A story about how empires don't get the final say and love can set a table for every single person, a story still told in this place right now. Perhaps you know, of course, that the days leading up to Easter morning are days of tears and sorrow and suffering. When that community he built around him met his death and grieved it together. As wise people have said, you cannot get to Easter without going through Good Friday first. You cannot get to spring without the long, cold winter. You cannot get to the impossible triumph of life without first living in the dark, deep places of the human capacity to cause hurt. And yet in this heartbreaking story, born out of what could have been the absolute end, we get a glimmer of the real and abiding miracle of Easter. Jesus, of course, was not killed for being all saintly and such. He was killed because he was a social radical and a threat to the dominant political order of his day. And so the Roman Empire made an example of him, and that should have been the end of the story. No more Jesus. No more rebellious Jesus followers messing with the powers that be. Over time, without this story, there would be no more Dr. King, no Oscar Romero, no liberation theology, no freedom fighters claiming the mantle of Jesus' example. But the story did not end there, because we are the story. In that day, in this day, in this time, when we still tell the story of a spirit that burned so bright that other people took up the torch he carried, we celebrate the actual miracle of Easter, because on this day, in this way, death does not have the final word. Sorrow does not win. The continued existence on earth of the church, endowed even still with a bit of the radical fire that I believe burned in a radical Jesus, that is a miracle. That it spread from hand to hand, from soul to soul, until it changed the world. They found each other, these friends of a man who died too young. They found each other and they found their voices. And while the story twisted and turned over ages in 100 ways, there is still a miracle there. A way made out of no way. A story that for once does not have to end in fear, but in light and in beauty and in the infinite possibilities of an empty tomb. Yes, even amid all that we have already lost, even amid all that the world is losing now, even amid the heartbreak and the hurry of our own lives, we will have our Easters too, because the way leads on, out of fear and into possibility. The way leads on. And for that, I need one more volunteer, or indeed any number of you that want to help me out. You ready? Because I told you something small would get so very big. You ready? Could you open this yellow egg? You can hold on to that calculator too. It can be your friend, just like it was for Zacchaeus. Open that up. Oh, what do you see? Look. The way leads on. Can somebody get a hold of the other end? Josiah, can you do that? All right, we'll hold it in the middle too. And when we start with one person and build to here, can you hold this end? And build to more people and more people and more people, a revolution of kindness begins. And what began so tiny can grow so big that it extends to bless us all. That's Easter. That from a tiny thing like an egg, a whole new world of kindness can be born. And that is Easter's gift to you. And so, today we lift up the words of my colleague Brian McLaren, who said, today death does not have the last word, and fear does not have the last word, and hate is not the last word, and money is not the last word, and power is not the last word. Instead, when betrayal and failure seem like the last word, we know that from every tomb rises life. May it be so. A community that started so little, growing so big. And amen. All right, you can head back.
I can pull this back. I'm going to pull this back.
Here, take it with you. Take it with you over here.
And now we rejoin the story of Ordinary Mary. Every time someone shared a kind deed with others, it inspired 5 more people to do a kind deed for 5 more people, and it just kept going and going. One kid was given a book as a kind deed. She brought that book to share at her RE class at River Road. She read it to 5 other kids in the class. It was a book about vegetable gardens. The teacher heard about the book and brought the kids out to our very own garden. There, Walter Weiss was in the garden getting ready to harvest kale. He helped the kids pick huge, huge bags full of kale. They had so much to bring home, and they had so much left over, they sent it to Shepherd's Table, where it was made into food or cooked so that people coming to that food shelter could get food. One of the kids who harvested the kale heard that there was going to be a food packing event at River Road for To Be Well Fed, and they decided to sign up. Altogether, everyone who came that day packed 150 bags of food. The Kivras who run To Be Well Fed delivered those bags to families in Ward 8 of DC right before spring break, so they would have food during spring break. Now, it just so happens, one of those people who got one of those bags was a friend of Mary, and she invited Mary over to share some mac and cheese. And it was the best mac and cheese Mary had ever had because she was able to share it with her friend. Mary? What, Ordinary Mary? Well, yes, Ordinary Mary's deed had come full circle. On the way, it had touched lives of every living person. Every time someone did a good deed, 5 other people did a good deed for 5 more people, and love was sent to every person. Let's see just what that looked like. Laura, can you help me out here? Awesome. Oh, yeah, definitely. I'll come all the way up here so you can see this. We start with 1 and 5 and keep multiplying, and pretty soon it is a really, really big number. That last number on there is actually more people than are on the entire planet. So after everybody had a share and everybody knew somebody cared, there was still love left over. The world was changed, and thousands and millions and billions of people agreed it was because one ordinary day, Ordinary Mary did a perfectly ordinary, stunningly earth-shaking, totally extraordinary deed. Like the River Roaders in the story, let's keep it going, spreading ordinary deeds throughout the world.
bright new beginnings and times of great hope happen because ordinary Marys and ordinary Daves and Marshes and Dannys in the sound booth and ordinary Cliffs and ordinary extraordinary choir members and extraordinary every single one of yous make it so. We are grateful for the gifts that we give, for the new world created through the ripple effects of our kindness. And so, as we leave this place on this glorious Easter morning, for an egg hunt, which will begin on the patio right out there, right where coffee hour happens, may you go then to be who you already are. You are the beloved and precious children of everything that is sacred in this world and worth saving. And the joy and the justice, the goodness and mercy, the power and the possibility of the Spirit are at loose in you and through you in the world. So go then into this Easter morning full of possibility to be who you already are. And may you be abundantly blessed. Happy Easter and amen.